So this is the 2358 hours GMT edition of the KhoodeelaarTV Television Channel, broadcasting under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo editions. Baby Angel Geronimo is the world's bestest baby, and Baby Angel Geronimo is the world's bestest baby angel witness to the worst depravity and corruption and criminality being perpetrated in the name of the UK people by the post holders and decision makers in the UK state. We shall be covering some of the topics in headline forms, but we shall also update on some of the other activities. Now, today's news, as we start this broadcast, includes the reported shooting in a German church. So we shall touch on that first, and then we shall move on to other issues and topics. This is the KhoodeelaarTV Television Channel, broadcasting from London in the UK. And this is the 2358 hours GMT edition on Thursday, the 9th of March 2023. KhoodeelaarTV Television Channel is a product of the KhoodeelaarTV campaign, and the KhoodeelaarTV campaign is being vindicated in the last 24 hours with the confirmation of the news about this is a dishonestly titled kind of heading: delay in the HS2 project, delay of 2 years. It should be scrapping of the HS2. If you look at the KhoodeelaarTV Television banner, KhoodeelaarTV campaign banner on the Twitter, you would see that one of the things we name as our targets for campaigning against is HS2, and we have been doing this right from the beginning. We have been saying that the HS2 is unsustainable, it's unnecessary, and absolutely corrupt. And this is what is proving. This is what events are proving HS2 to have been. And we have been saying it for as long as HS2 has been in motion, if you like. And we have said everything that can be said now by the others. We've said about the costs. We have said everything about the fact that the speed is a complete non-starter. There is no need for saving 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever from a journey. The best thing to do with the money, if the money is going to be available for investment in railway transport, is to address the very serious dysfunction and disrepair on the existing lines, which would bring more benefits than 10 HS2s would do with a fraction of the cost. So we have been vindicated about the campaign against HS2, and we shall update accordingly, of course, on that. We said exactly what happened with Crossrail, because the KhoodeelaarTV campaign was started 20 years ago, 20 calendar years ago, in December 2003, and that was initially to defend the Brick Lane area from the plotted Crossrail attack, because the attack was going to be in the form of a big hole in the middle of Brick Lane, which would have completely physically destroyed Britain and created a unity. So we have been vindicated about that, and we have been vindicated about Crossrail and the HS2 now. And we also say that the entirety of the Fleet Street media, including the so-called Financial Times, had been silent. They had been supporting Crossrail, but they're now gradually beginning to say what the government is allowing it to say. And so is the case with the Guardian. The Guardian was supporting, absolutely solidly supporting the corrupt stage of the plot of the Crossrail, and it only indirectly began to accept the reality. But it didn't report the reality. By two Indian origin, Indian descended British politicians in government, Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman. I mean, it's not ironic, it's a criminal irony that these two stooges, because despite the fact that she's been making outrageously far right, racist kind of slogans, Suella Braverman is essentially a moral coward and a liar. And this is evident in the fact that she has not rebutted the challenge from the civil service, the permanent staff in the Home Office. She has defamed them, she has maligned them, and she has lied about them, and they have been challenging her to retract and to do other things that they have detailed in their demand, and she has not been able to do that. That shows she is a coward. She's a moral coward, which is why she's insecure, which is why she wants to be in the, within quotes, good books or on the side of the far right in the United Kingdom. And Sunak is the same. And so we shall be diagnosing Sunak and Braverman in due course, and we shall be doing that after we go over the item about Gary Lineker. Now, the fact that Gary Lineker is in the news about this particular criminality called the anti-immigration bill proves that Keir Starmer is politically dead, because it should have been Keir Starmer doing the running, but it's Gary Lineker. And a few weeks ago, it was the Scottish kind of singer, well, Scottish born, let's say, because he lives in Surrey, um, Rod Stewart. Rod Stewart calling Sky News, one of the slots on Sky News, offering to pay for the scanning, the scanner operations or scanner operation of the process that people couldn't afford. So he went to Essex and he paid for about 20, is it 20? Whatever the number, he said that he's prepared to go around and other places, other parts of the United Kingdom, doing the same offering, same covering of the cost of the MRI scanning. That is what it is called. So the fact that it is Rod Stewart and Gary Lineker doing the running and not the opposition, so called, shows that these estimates that Keir Starmer is almost elected to lead the government in the United Kingdom is not only over kind of stated, but it is completely a fantasy, because what the likes of Rachel Reeves and was treating two of the right wingers in the front of the backbench, the opposition, if you like, front of the backbench, meaning that they are the ones that are actually the opposition in the current kind of parliament. And these two are not saying anything original, and nor is anybody else. Yvette Cooper is not doing the running. She's not actually leading leading the campaign against the. I mean, where do you begin? Keir Starmer is supposed to be, quote, a licensed law trader. Now, what is he showing of his being a licensed law trader? Because the United Kingdom, as we, world exclusively, have been saying for 4 years of this broadcast, the United Kingdom is a current active signatory to hundreds of hundreds of international treaties and obligations and declarations and conventions and statements. One of the most important ones covers this whole idea of asylum, refugee, and so on. All aspects, all aspects of the so-called problems blamed on the asylum seekers by Sunak and Braverman have been covered in the treaties. So anyone who is a member of the opposition should have been saying this very thing that I've just said, but they have not been saying it. So we shall be talking about that as well. And what we're doing here is covering and making up for in terms of the content, in terms of the intellectual content, the role that should have been played by the entirety of the public platforms, the media, the opposition in parliament, and the judiciary. And the fact that in the Times the other day says the headline is, well, I'll get to the Times and give the item a fuller reading. Sunak ready to battle judges over migration. Now, who is Sunak being? Let's look at the actual content of this piece, and then we shall go into Sunak a bit more. So this is the Times of. This is the Times of Wednesday, the 8th of March, and on the front page, under the picture of these two dogs, called H and Boo, is this heading: Sunak ready to battle judges over migration. Now, this is the Times on the. That is the Times. Can I get it any nearer? That is the Times. So a bit upside down, you have to do it. So what it is saying is worth reading absolutely in context because it covers all the outlets, all the platforms. It says Prime Minister bullish on plans to deport boat arrivals. European court abuses natural justice, he says. Now, Rishi Sunak, despite the fact that he has been overstated as a rich person because of the controversial wealth of his wife's father, Rishi Sunak is not a very bright individual, is he? He has no idea what he's talking about, but the Times should know better than to give him credit for saying this. He has no locus. He has absolutely no locus. He has no ability. He has no ground to say that the European court abuses natural justice. How can the Times run this kind of story or this heading, subheading? So the fact that the Times is doing that shows that natural justice, objectively speaking, is at risk from the Times, is from Sunak and the judges. Let's read this. Now, the political editor Stephen Swinford and Whitehall editor Chris Smith or Smythe and Oliver Wright, policy editor. Now, the three editors are in the Times piece. What is it saying? Rishi Sunak has declared he is up for the fight with judges in Europe over plans to detain and deport almost all migrants who arrive in small boats. Now, before going any further, this will be the direct war not about these judges. It will be a direct challenge and a war against international membership status of the United Kingdom as a state. This is what, at the times, these three policy editors don't seem to understand that. Because instead of saying what I've just read them saying in the first paragraph, the first paragraph should have read that Rishi Sunak is taking a risk in exposing the United Kingdom to the charge of a pariah state. That is what it should be. On the facts that they actually contain in the piece underneath this heading and beyond this first paragraph. The Prime Minister accused the European Court of Human Rights of abusing natural justice. How can that even be begun to be said? Natural justice, natural justice as a phrase has been updated or replaced by something else, but the point is taken. Now, natural justice by definition cannot be an abuse because natural justice is a safeguard, it's a protection against injustice, against lack of say. So here is the fuller paragraph. The Prime Minister accused the European Court of Human Rights of abusing natural justice by issuing last minute injunctions. Now, the whole thing, in the Times piece is wrong. It is up to the court and it is up to the applications and it is up to the availability of the applications, the opportunities, and all the other things that happen in every single court. Last minute issuing of injunctions cannot be an offense. This is what the courts exist to do. So the whole thing is wrong. Again, I'll read beyond that. By issuing last minute injunctions without a right of appeal that have stalled the government's Rwanda deportation scheme. Now, this is ridiculous. This is conflating, that is mixing up too many things. It is misrepresenting the court's ordinary functions. It's misrepresenting the actual plot that Sunak is working on now with the new fascistic bill. And is trying to create a misrepresented view of Britain's right. There is no such thing as British right to do the wrong things, which is what this is about. Under plans unveiled by Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, almost all asylum seekers who reach the UK on small boats will be detained without bail for 28 days before they are deported to their home country, or if this is not safe, another destination such as Rwanda. So it's absolutely full of serious defects and contradictions. If the people are so desperate to leave their country like this, to take the example of one individual that died in the ocean of Italy, Shahida Raja, if we take her example, she has a disabled son called Hassan, and she is 27 years old, and her husband divorced her on the published ground that he could not live with a disabled child. Now, Shahida Raza is an accomplished sportswoman, specializing and achieving high marks in a number of sports in Pakistan on behalf of Pakistan, internationally and domestically. So, if she felt that she had to leave Pakistan because she couldn't provide for her child and herself, then what is the point of treating her or somebody like her as voluntarily opting to risk their lives in the seas? She didn't. She was let down by the Pakistan authorities. She was let down Pakistan society. She was let down by Pakistan central government, and she was let down the Pakistan Baluchistan government. Real can be. So, what is Suella Braverman saying is that somebody like Shahida Raza is to be treated as a criminal. That is what this bill is doing. Detained for 28 days. So, vulnerability has become a criminal. Vulnerable people have become criminals. Vulnerability has become a crime, which reminds me of Keir Starmer as a person. The real identity of Keir Starmer is that he is a cruel person, a person who is hostile to the most vulnerable in society, which is why he has been silent, which is why his front bench has been silent. Yvette Cooper has been silent. Yvette Cooper herself is a right winger, and she would need hardly any encouragement from the likes of Keir Starmer to stay complicit with the fascistic oppressive measures that the conservatives are plotting to bring about. Let's go back to the time check. This is 22 minutes. Well, 23 minutes we've been on air on broadcasting, and this is the Khoodeelaar Television Channel broadcasting this edition on the 9th of March 2023. Now, this is coming into the 10th of March, Friday, the 10th of March 2023, but we are in the edition dated the 9th of March, Thursday. Now, this item on the Times front page is full of contradictions and is totally ignorant and is a disservice to the people who are reading the Times. Now, remember, the Times is the newspaper of the record. I mean, there is no competence in the knowledge of the legal issues, the humanitarian issues. So we shall come back to this one, and we shall complete reading the reading the second paragraph. Let's say without any interruptions. That is, I interrupt my reading by having to interpret in the middle. So this one I'll do without interpreting in the middle. The Prime Minister accused the European Court of Human Rights of abusing natural justice by issuing last-minute injunctions without a right of appeal that have stalled the government's Rwanda deportation scheme. He insisted legislation was the only way to stop the Channel crisis, even if it led to a clash over human rights. Now that's the paragraph, which is a stupid, contradictory, ignorant, false, misleading paragraph. Misleading about the law, misleading about the procedures, misleading about the actual obligation on the government to observe the objective international standards of due process, not rule of law, due process, which is a higher level and standard than any rule of law can express. We are up for the fight and we are confident that we will win, he said. If challenged, we will fight that hard because we believe that we are doing the right thing and it is in compliance with our obligations. Now, the Times doesn't say what compliance is he referring to and what obligations he is referring to, but we shall look at the next paragraph. Under plans unveiled by Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, almost all asylum seekers who reach the UK on small boats will be detained without bail for 28 days before they are deported to their home country. Or, if this is not safe, another destination, such as Rwanda. They will lose the right to challenge their deportation under human rights law while in the UK. Now, that cannot be done. Human rights law is not a kind of selective law. That is to say, if the United Kingdom is signed up to the particular human rights requirements, then it is signed up to the particular human rights requirements. It cannot stop part of the human rights requirements and then start again. That cannot happen. The most important significant feature of any legal system worth mentioning is that it is consistent. Because if it is not consistent, then it cannot be referred to, it cannot be applied. So, human rights law has to be adhered to in full, not in piecemeal way, not part of the way, part of the, not part of the way. So, here, the next one. They will lose the right to challenge their deportation under human rights law while in the UK, and once deported, will be automatically banned. Can you believe that? From ever returning to Britain. So, what they're doing, they're treating asylum seekers as a terrorist suspect like Shamima Begum, ever returning to Britain. That's what they're doing. And this is not obvious by reading the stupid headline, not the subheading, not the introductory paragraph in the Times. So the rest of the piece is like this: misleading, illegal, and in breach of the hundreds of treaties, various aspects of the United Kingdom's treaty obligations. Now, let me just explain something about the treaty obligations. When the criminals, that is, those who perpetrated lies under the slogan campaigning for Brexit, they said things like 350 million pounds would be saved for the National Health Service, because that was the sum that they put on the side of the bus, Brexit campaign bus, saying that that was the sum, 350 million pounds, being paid to the European Union every week by the United Kingdom. That was a complete lie. That was not being paid off the budget of the National Health Service at all. Because if you look at the actual daily news considerations for the last, say, 13 years since the Conservatives have been in power, the main issues are about allegedly saving money for the society, for the economy. But that's not the case. What this is they use the expression of concern, good housekeeping, and all the rest of it to hide their actual behavior, the Conservatives and the big business colluders. and the big business masters and mistresses that they serve. They hide their real purpose, which is to abuse. I'll come to the word abuse, which is to abuse the entire reality of the resources of the state. Put it another way, when the Guptas in South Africa took over the entire state structure of the South African government, South African state, with collusion, complicity by Joseph Jacob Zuma, this is what they did. They abused the state and they made the robbery or robberies by taking over the financial capacity of the state, any state. Now, the United Kingdom state exists, as far as the conservatives are concerned, as a means for them to enrich themselves and to serve the big business. The UK state does not exist, according to the conservatives, to serve the people. Now, the Labour Party was founded to serve the needs of the majority of the people in need. The ideology underlying the National Health Service Foundation was to serve the majority of the people. When the slogan was created at the point of need, that was literally what was needed. That is why that slogan actually resonated with the majority of people. That is why the National Health Service, the idea of the National Health Service was appealing. And even now, it appeals to people who know that without the National Health Service there, most of their needs, health needs, cannot be met by individual resources. Now, the reason why I said about Keir Starmer and his silence and his cruelty personality and his hostility to the most vulnerable people, I don't make this up. I refer to his action while he was Director of Public Prosecutions about a month or 2 months before he retired from that position, which he had to do 5 years is a length of one term. And he retired at the end of 5 years. But before he did that, Keir Starmer, did something that he shouldn't have done. As the Director of Public Prosecutions, he was not the Parliament. He was not the House of Commons or the Houses of Parliament. Yet he behaved as if he was. So what he did was he has introduced Keir Starmer as the Director of Public Prosecutions of the United Kingdom, England and Wales, whatever, introduced a series of illegal, criminally motivated, prejudicial hurdles and obstacles to deter, to discourage, to deny the most in need poor people in poverty, people with disabilities, from making a straightforward, successful claim for help. He introduced obstacles that themselves would add to the aggravation of the problems and would make people even more desperate than they already were. Now, that is to be examined in the context of the previous things that happened with the DWP, that deprivation, want, and poverty creation. Officially, they call it Department for Work and Pension, but it is actually deprivation, deprivation, work, want, and pension, poverty creation. That is what the experience of the vast majority of people in need of help for economic grounds, financial grounds, actually feel this department is doing, and his department has been used or abused. Now, every angle, every aspect of the UK state has been abused by the Conservatives. Every organ of the state has been abused by the Conservatives. So when the Times writes that kind of news item, it should make room for adding that kind of fact in the background. But there is no such fact in the background. There is no such room for the possible inclusion of the actual evidence of the Conservatives' behavior in persistently abusing the state. And that goes back to Margaret Thatcher when she said, there is no such thing as society. Now, logically look at this. If there is no such thing as society, then there cannot be a thing called state, because the state is the executive expression of the existence of society. The state is the permanent, consented to expression of the people recognizing the existence and operation of society. So if she says, for example, that there is no such thing as society, then what she's saying is that there is no such thing as state, which means that she has no existence herself as either the incumbent prime minister at the time she said it, or any of our colleagues in the cabinet. Now, these are very serious issues that actually raise questions about the overall validity and legitimacy of the utterances being attributed to the intellectually deficient and corrupt and dishonest Rishi Sunak. But he's not being held to account for that in that way, which means there is a letdown for the society, which means that there is huge hunger and there is huge need for this to be exposed by the opposition. But Starmer is not doing that, as I said. Starmer is not motivated to do that because Starmer is himself motivated to penalize the people in hardship and make them suffer more hardship and denial and deprivation. And as thousands of people, because the full number is not yet published, but it will estimate that over the period of Ian Duncan Smith being in post as the Secretary of State at the DWP, thousands of people are denied benefit when they needed the benefit. And those very people who needed the benefit and were denied the benefit had no other source of income to survive. And they were so pressurized and made so desperate that so many of them, hundreds, if not thousands, took their own lives. So that is the background, and Keir Starmer made lives for that kind of people even more difficult when he issued the new obstacles shortly before he left the tenure as the Director of Public Prosecutions in the Crown Prosecution Service. And so therefore what Sunak is doing, adding new obstacles and obstructions to the most in need people, he is following Keir Starmer. So it follows that Keir Starmer is not, in terms of sequence, Keir Starmer doesn't have to respond, let alone reject what Rishi Sunak is doing. He will be only too pleased in his mind that Rishi Sunak is doing what he, Keir Starmer, would have done himself. Which is why this is the evidence, this is one of the key evidence on which we justifiably say, and we've been saying, that Keir Starmer has politically murdered the Labour Party. because the people can't go to any other place. When the government is repressive, government is taking basic civil liberties, human rights from the people most in need, it can only do the same things and rob the asylum seekers and refugees of their human rights much more easily because they're doing it domestically to the ordinary British citizens. So, this is a legal commentary. I have just made a summary of everything that has been happening, and this is inclusive of the role of the higher courts or high courts in the United Kingdom. The Supreme Court decision, the Supreme Court decision in denying Shamima Begum the appeal seeking the permission to return to the United Kingdom to properly and evidentially fight the illegal removal or revocation of Shamima Begum's British by birth citizenship by Sajid Javid is typical of the role the Supreme Court has been playing, typical of the role that the judicial system has been playing. And the judicial system in this country is corrupt and is corrupt to the core, it is racist to the core, and it is prohibitive of international rules and requirements. And the reason why this is not in the news in the way that it should be and could be and must be is because the outlets like the Guardian, which claim to be engaged in looking at and investigating the corruption, illegality, and bad practices by the UK government, are themselves corrupt and cruel and hostile to the majority of the people, as is the Channel 4 News, as is the Channel 4 outlet itself, because Channel 4 boasts of being independent minded and is meeting the needs of the truth to be told. It's not. As we have said about the series that it did about how to get a council house, which ended up promoting the arguments against people's basic right to housing. And in Tower Hamlets' case, it ended up supporting the Tower Hamlets Council's consolidated corruption and criminality and illegality. And in the context of this criminality and illegality role being played by Tower Hamlets Council, let's check on the Tower Hamlets Council's website status now. This is 18 minutes to 1 o'clock in the morning on Friday, the 10th of March 2023. Let's check what the Tower Hamlets Council website is saying. So let's check on this phrase. This safeguarding children duty is a duty under the law that every single local council must discharge. And here, Tower Hamlets Council website is saying, your search for safeguarding children duty returns zero results. Why is that important? Because under that duty, Tower Hamlets Council should have prevented Shamima Begum and her friends from being groomed being contracted, being radicalized, whatever they were done. So if we look at the next kind of logical or related search, which is Shamima Begum, it will produce the same result. Your search for Shamima Begum returns 0 results. So if we take it further to, let's say, December 2014, when Sharmina Begum was brainwashed by the Sisters Forum based at the East London Mosque, and it says, and the result says, your search for Sharmina Begum returned 0 results. And it helpfully adds these stupid morons, showing 48 results for Shahina Begum instead. Fuck you, Taramda's fucking lying council. So this is 46 minutes, 29 seconds, and we are broadcasting under the banner of the Baby Angel Geronimo Editions, Khoodeelaar television channel. On the edition is for Thursday, the 9th of March, part B, on Thursday, the 9th of March 2023. One of the other items that we can talk about, we must talk about, is Gary Lineker, of course. So Gary Lineker in the news is the latest item featuring Gary Lineker. So 1 hour ago, this is in the Daily Mirror. Gary Lineker hints he will escape BBC suspension over government policy tweet. And the Daily Mirror previous one, within the same hour, Good Morning Britain's Richard Madeley weighs in on Gary Lineker's stupid Nazi Germany comments. Now, Richard Madeley is one of the most idiotic, corrupt, racist, stupid faces on British television. The fact that this criminal has been given one platform or another over the last 30 years or longer shows that on British mainstream television, there has been no standards. Absolutely no standards. Because nothing he says, nothing he does, nothing he kind of appears to resemble comes anywhere near rationality, knowledge, substance, morality, ethics. And despite the fact that he's an idiot, and he's an idiot for doing a disservice to ordinary people, being fed idiocies and lies and untruths by him affects the quality of life for those people and affects the quality of society. So, for that reason, there should be a morally vigilant, ethically vigilant, evidentially vigilant, real auditor for the channel that he has been given a platform for. Because long time he and his wife, the two of them, really did a great disservice. Having a permanent slot on ITV for too long They were allowed to lie on real serious facts and distort serious facts and aid and abet the misinformation long before the term misinformation became trendy in the internet age. But they were misinforming and dishing out misinformation long before the internet came into being. And even Piers Morgan is supporting Gary Lineker and calling him a victim of Jeremy Clarkson style witch hunt. Now, that is one summary of what is going on. And we go back to the reason why Gary Lineker is even relevant. Because if the shadow so called Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, had done her job and really diagnosed the corruption, criminality, illegality, breach of international treaty obligations, about this whole thing about legislation attacking the most vulnerable, then anyone, including Gary Lineker, would not have merited the kind of heading that he has been given, because there has been a void. There has been an emptiness in which Gary Lineker has featured as a personality in context, in the topicality. Okay, so let's go to Penny Mordaunt. I mean, her name could easily be Penny Mordaunt, couldn't it? Let's see what the Mordaunt has been doing. This is an item by Tom Morton, and it says, Leader of the House of Commons Penny Mordaunt, who represents Portsmouth North, criticized the Labour Party's position on the matter in Parliament, saying, they say they want to stop the boats, but they're not prepared to help us do it. Now, that very statement that they say they want to stop the boats gives the game away. The Labour Party are saying that they want to stop the boats. So they're not even pretending to be silent. They are colluding openly with the criminals, the Conservatives. Mordaunt went on to mention Gary Lineker, who has famously been critical of the government on the migrant issue, comparing Labour to goal hangers and making a play on words on recent industrial action by calling them left-wing strikers. It's not a lot in there, this piece. So we go back to the situation in Pakistan with the avoidable death of this sportswoman, Shahida Raza. I would say that if the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party, fronted by Imran Khan, really want to do anything to add substance to the slogan that they are engaged in bringing about the changes that the country needs as part of the Hakiki Azadi, then they should take an world leadership role in memory of, in honor of Shahida Raza, and to do something as a country, as a state, as a member of the United Nations, do something that actually stops people like Shahida Raza from feeling so desperate, feeling so unappreciated, unsupported, as to leave their country and risk their lives. Can Pakistan do that? Will Imran Khan do that? Because I've advised Imran Khan on other things, especially about 1971, and there has been no response from Imran Khan or from his party. But I merely insist that if he listened to my advice about apologizing, although he was not involved personally, but apologizing for the state of Pakistan at the time in 1971, mounting planned massacres against the civilian innocents. I say civilian as a distinction because if they are armed individuals taking on the security of the country that the Pakistan military was allegedly representing as a defender of, then of course there could be in international law a case. I'm not saying there was, but I'm saying there could be a case for the Pakistan army at the time claiming to be defending the country's sovereignty, independence, whatsoever. But there can be no case internationally, regionally, locally, domestically, anywhere for the Pakistan military in 1971 committing the massacres of the innocents. Because many of the massacres that were taking place during the year weren't reported. Most of those were not being reported. They only became known after the events, if you like, after the 16th of December 1971, when India's then Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, launched an all out military offensive against the Pakistan military and forced the Pakistan army military to surrender on the 16th of December 1971. Now, if Indira Gandhi had not done that, nobody knows how long after that the confrontation would have gone on for. So we can't say that. any amount of time, any length of time. But essentially, whatever length of time it would have been running for, the civilians were not involved. I am one of those civilians who didn't know what was going on in terms of the actual military operations where the military arrived. I mean, the only time that we knew about the military coming to our village was when we knew of rumors that the Pakistan army were about to come to our village areas, that they were on their way to Dakadokkin in Silot. So I had to take emergency steps to protect my mother and the siblings. So we moved as far as we could in that time to a distance that we thought would not be reachable by the military coming to Dakadokkin or nearby areas. So that's the only time that we became aware of the military. We didn't see them, we heard about them. But the overwhelming majority of the incidents of the military attacking civilian people across East Pakistan in 1971, the facts about them, the news about them, the information about them, the witness accounts about them only became available to the public and publicly available after the 16th of December 1971. So, what has been published after the 16th of December 1971 shows that all these civilians were targeted by the military, Pakistan military. Now, the Pakistan military has not said, as far as I can see, the Pakistan military has not said, the Pakistan military that is in position successively after these 1971 events, as to why they thought that they should murder civilians in East Pakistan, that they should allow rapes of innocent women and girls in East Pakistan. What law did they think they were implementing? And to use the topical slogan by the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf and Imran Khan, what was Hakiki Azadi about that kind of massacre and mass rapes? So Imran Khan has to explain all those things, and he has to explain by referring to his location. Imran Khan is not that much different aged. He's only a few years younger than me. But essentially, Imran Khan was aware of what was going on. If he wasn't aware at the time, contemporaneously, he has been aware many years ago. But he has not made any definitive statement about where he stands now as to what the Pakistan military were doing. Now, whatever programs the Hakiki Azadi movement or Hakiki Azadi part of their program of the Tehreek-e-Insaf may entail or allow to be delivered in what is now Pakistan will not come anywhere near, will never come anywhere near being the same in magnitude, in horror, in terror, in massacre, in violations of human rights, that the mass murders, mass rapes, individual murders by the Pakistan military committed against East Pakistani civilians represent. Now, once Imran Khan and or the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf truthfully and transparently and morally and ethically explain where they stand about all those things that were done in the name of Pakistan by the Pakistan Army in 1971 until 16th of December, because 2 weeks of the month of December were left of the year without them being able to do the same things because they were interrupted by the Indian intervention, the definitive intervention by the Indian Army, the military intervention. So 2 weeks, only 2 weeks, they didn't do anything. After the start of the program of attacks and massacres and mass rapes and violations. And the military created, not every day, not in every village, but wherever they actually targeted and went to, they created a state of terror. They created a state of desperation among the people, fearing for their lives. Why did they do that? What part of the lives of the people of East Pakistan did the Pakistan military and the Pakistan military decision makers, strategists, think constituted such an unforgivable offense that they had to be murdered, they had to be raped, they had to be violated, and they had to be terrorized? What evidence did the Pakistan army have? Or their colluders? Because there were many people in East Pakistan that were forced to be acting as informants for their own safety. What did they say to the military? What evidence did they bring? Because if Imran Khan is actually a Hakiki politician, representing Hakiki alternative to the bogus and the criminal and the corrupt status quo that dominates Pakistan government and state now, then he has no excuse. Imran Khan has no excuse as the leader, nor has the Tehreek-e-Insaf any excuse to not comment factually, transparently, extensively, evidentially, truthfully, objectively, lawfully, and fairly and justly as to what did the military think they were doing when they embarked on the mass murders of civilians, mass rapes of civilians in East Pakistan. And what do the Tehreek-e-Insaf leadership think of those violations and criminalities now, 50 plus years later? If the Tehreek-e-Insaf and Imran Khan have now, it is now 10th of March 2023, if they think that they have got a reason, whatever the reason, I'll come to that in a minute, for staying silent, then they have to say at least that they have a reason for staying silent. And there cannot be a reason. I have come to that now. There cannot be any reason for doing crimes in the name of the state. There never has been. The state's existence, any state worth its name, any state loses the fundamental legitimacy, the rationale, when it does that, when it attacks its civilians. And Pakistan army attacked at that time the bigger portion of the population of Pakistan and treated the bigger part of the population of Pakistan as criminals. What crimes were the people of East Pakistan committing? This question has to be answered by Imran Khan. What crime, what evidence of what crime existed at the time and has been found since that time? 52 years is a long time to investigate and check and fact check and analyze what was supposed to be a mass crime. What mass crimes did the people of East Pakistan commit in 1971 up to the 16th of December? That is the Hakiki Azadi. That's the first and the most important obligation on anyone who says that they are interested in bringing about Hakiki Azadi in Pakistan. Because that is where Pakistan exists. That is to say, that the future of what is now Pakistan or what has been Pakistan since 16th of December 1971, the future rationale would disappear if what happened up to the 16th of December 1971 in East Pakistan to the civilians, against the civilians of East Pakistan, is not transparently, completely explained, accounted for. I shall continue, of course, to update on the other aspects of what I said and what I say Imran Khan should be doing and the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf people should be doing. Now, going back to the issues, including this one, that the update, let's see what's happened, what they found in Germany. We're talking about the bomb of the shooting that happened in Germany on Thursday. Let's see what. So this is from the Guardian's website, Guardian London. At least 7 killed and others wounded in Hamburg shooting. Reports that incident took place in a Jehovah's Witness center with a gunman thought to be among the dead. At least 7 people have been killed and several more injured after shooting in the northern German city of Hamburg. German media reported citing police and emergency services. Police said the gunman was believed to be among the dead. We have no indications of a perpetrator on the run, a spokesman said soon after the attack. Later, police said that they had found a lifeless person who we believe could be a perpetrator. Investigations were ongoing to rule out the involvement of further perpetrators, police said. Now, notice the use of the word perpetrator rather than terrorist. Hamburg police tweeted earlier on Thursday evening that a major police operation was underway in the Grossborstel district of the city, adding that they were urgently investigating the background but have no further details. According to initial findings, shots were fired in a church on Dilbogestrasse in the Grossborstel district, police said. Several people were seriously injured, some fatally. We are on site with a large contingent of officers. Bild newspaper, it's a German newspaper, Bild, said 7 people had died and 25 were injured. 8 of them seriously in the shooting, which said happened in a Jehovah's Witness center soon after 9 p.m. Police from a special unit were by chance already near the scene when the shooting happened, local media reported. Police officers happened to be near the crime scene because they were on their way back to their accommodation at the police headquarters in Alsterdorf, Welt reported. NDR reporter Heiko Sander told Tagesschau that police were close by when they heard several shots being fired. Police entered the building and started evacuating people, including a woman who was pregnant, Sanders said. A police spokesman said several streets had been sealed off and the public warned by text messages to avoid the area. Local residents were told to stay indoors and only to use their phones in extreme emergency so as not to overburden the network. Okay, so that is the Guardian update, which is not really a lot of new factors. And there is still no explanation as to what lay behind the shooting. And we shall be coming to that in later hours. Now, back to the question of this attack on the what the British mainstream media and the right wing called the wokes, related to the family of a BBC journalist, Laura. What's her name? This woman, let's get her second name. Not okay, her name is Laura Trevelyan. I shall come to that. Laura Trevelyan is described here as having been born in Islington, London, aged 54 now. And she has got dual nationalities, British and American. And she did a degree in 1990 from Bristol University. And she did a MA in journalism from the Cardiff University Wales College, Journalism College in 1991. And she has been a journalist from 1991 to present. And she is employed by the BBC World Service. Now, Laura Trevelyan, anyone who has watched her on-screen appearance would have observed, as I have observed right from the beginning, that she has an air about her that suggests that she is superior to the ordinary people, what is called in England or Britain an upper class. Now, there was nothing obvious about her background, but there was a lot obvious about her manner and style, which she concealed or she didn't have to explain for as long as she had done until very recently, with the declaration that her ancestors benefited from slavery and owned slaves, etc. Now, Laura Trevelyan is, of course, one of the very small number of BBC employees that has had that kind of thing featured in the news about her. So, what should be the response to her confession which is a kind of in a roundabout way. She went a lot round and round and round before she confessed, because she tried to avoid responsibility in terms of the inheritance. And there was no real apology or remorse. She was trying to look for ways to excuse herself. I'll come to that factor of excuse by the BBC quote journalists, and I shall compare that with the opprobrium that the Daily Mail and others have been putting against Gary Lineker, who is also a BBC, well, contracted person, BBC linked. Instead of looking at slavery, instead of looking at the ideas driving slavery and slave ownership, instead of looking at the racist superiority that all the slave owners and slavers obviously suffered from, the official mental slave, Trevor Terrible Phillips, P is the word for urine. And I use that word to mean that Trevor Terrible Phillips is his racist masters and mistresses' urine. I've been using this for several years now. And I say that because my example has been followed, although not by acknowledging this, by Matthew Paris, who has called Boris Johnson the dogmas on Britain's pavement. So the Trevor Terrible Phillips found a roundabout way to describe himself as related somehow to Laura Trevelyan. He said that he was a contemporary at a university of Laura Trevelyan. I mean, what was the point? Whatever his kind of presence around her or near her or along with her when he went to university and she went to university is not material to slavery and slave ownership. And yet the mental slave found a way to say that people who are complaining against slavery and slave ownership should kind of stop being so heavy against the imperialists. Now that is the official slave owner, mental slave, currently mental slave. He would be happy to be a slave, wouldn't he? Trevor Terrible Phillips. Then we've got in the Financial Times this boy, born in Bethnal Green in Tower Hamlets, and he's somehow managed to be, placed at a college in Oxford. Now, then this Oxford University thing comes into play, doesn't it? The Oxford network of corruption. Now, Stephen Bush wrote a piece in the Financial Times, which he has joined recently, or not long ago, in which not only does he pretend not to have been affected by the slave ownership or slavery, but he becomes a slave owner himself. He imagines a scenario where he becomes the equivalent of an upper class African in South Africa or Southern Africa. So not only is he undermining the criticism of slavers and slavery and slave ownership, he is become a slave owner only with black skin. Now, Stephen Bush is a craftier mental slave than Trevor Terrible Phillips. And then there is the other one today. Was it today? Yes, today's Times. Today's meaning Thursday's 9th of March 2023. Times which has got this new mental slave on display. Let's find the Times while I'm referring to the Times of Thursday, the 9th of March 2023. Okay, this Times is full of promoting Kate Middleton, and they're putting her in the military kind of uniform. And they pictured her in the Salisbury Plain. And the relentless promotion of Kate Middleton goes on. Remember, in the background is, of course, the relentless attacks on and denial of Meghan Markle. That is what is happening here. Okay, so this is the Times of Thursday, the 9th of March 2023, which has got two mental slaves in there. Let's find the one that I'm looking for. Here is the one on the this one is well, I will pronounce it in the way that it is written. I don't know whether it's the authentic, correct pronunciation, but it looks like an African language name. Tomiwa Ouladi. And it is headed, "We will never be multicultural if we fail Quran test." Now, there should be a clarifying kind of subheading, but there isn't. And this criminal, Tomiwa Oulade, is one of the latest mental slaves recruited by the British right wing and racists and anti-Muslims, because Trevor Terrible Phillips is a dedicated servant of the anti-Muslim cause. And this piece is about the what he called the vulnerable teenager, he says, who deserved protection. Instead, the authorities gave succor to the mob. Now, mob is the word used by another mental slave, Harman, the mental slave Woosley. Harman, the mental slave Woosley, was only given the job as the education officer in the ILEA because of something I had done. I had said, never intending that they would be so stupid as to appoint him, I had said that the inner London demography needed a person with a direct experience of the black community to be the education officer of the ILEA. I was a member of the school subcommittee, and other subcommittees were I played a very active part for as long as I was there. So when I wrote a note about some of the issues that I addressed every day, the mental slave Herman Ousley described my proposed arrival at County Hall with the particular intention to demand explanation about the latest misuse and abuse by the Inner London Education Authority bureaucracy, ILEA bureaucracy. Mental slave Harman Ousley said that I had threatened to arrive there with a mob. I mean, mob is a bad word. And the last thing I have ever done is to even associate with any mob, let alone organize a mob. I never needed a mob, and I still don't. Haman mental slave Ousley is a complete and utter liar and a crook. As Chris Bryant, a Welsh member of parliament for the Labour Party, disclosed in a speech in the House of Commons, when Tony Blair introduced this kind of completely false people's way of nominating membership for the House of Peers, he said that Herman Useless Ousley was given the task to supervise the operation of that particular option, but instead he abused it by nominating himself. So Herman Ousley is a crook, a liar, and a very petty, selfish individual. I shall do an essay on Herman, the mental slave Ousley, along with references to the other mental slaves as well in due course, not in this particular edition. So that was the use of the mob, which was a completely wrong use of the mob. And this mental slave, how dare these racist papers and outlets keep finding mental slaves to spew against Muslims. In the United Kingdom, I have never, ever considered any action, political action, that could be described as Muslim activism. I make the distinction because to do the Muslim activism would be to assume a stupid locus. I never was a Muslim activist anywhere, ever. Because to uphold the right or rights of a group of people because of their religion or their ethnicity is not to be equated as being active for those who are affected based on their ethnicity. It's not an ethnic activism or religious activism. I'm an internationalist through and through and through. And I oppose, and I mean that, I oppose Muslims doing missionary work in the streets of the UK. I think it's grotesque. It's completely irresponsible and corrupt. Muslims who go and approach white people mainly, which is what I see, and preach at them and ask them to become Muslims, have to make sure that they, the ones who approach these people, are adhering to the tenets of Islam in full before they approach any person to become a Muslim. That is my own rule for myself, because I always know that I have a lot of Islamic tenets to reflect in my own activities. So, unless I can do that, I don't have the right to say to anyone who is not a Muslim to become a Muslim. Why should I? There are more anti Islamic activities being done by Muslims by name, by birth, and whatever. And that is the whole point. That will be the problem forever. Muslims have no right to preach to non Muslims for those reasons. And I'm not going to repeat because it's all on the record. Now, this criminal, Tomiwa Oulade, is a shameless disgrace. I don't see any example anywhere, either in the Times or the Guardian or anywhere, of any Muslim writing about the African people, against the African people. Because the Islamic faith is mainly demographically available in Asia more than anywhere else. So, why should these African origin mental slave launch an attack on the people who were defending the sanctity of their faith, of their holy book? And how does defending the faith and the holy book constitute an attack on multiculturalism? Now, there is another mental slave on the same edition of the Times. She is absolutely horrible. She is as shameless and as corrupt as the next Indian origin mental slave of the races, Catherine Birbal Singh. She is a crook, but every crook, mental slave from the background that Birbal Singh is from, is given a platform by the Times, by the media. And it goes on. So we shall be concluding by saying about Shamima Begum that all the items, the so-called documentary items about Shamima Begum that I have seen and examined, all the items, what are they doing? They're shielding the corruptors, the groomers, the radicalizers, the operators, the handlers of this girl. How? Because they are not. We are the only ones who have been saying this. None of this media from anyone is referring to the safeguarding children duty owed by Tower Hamlets Council, which neglected that duty and is still neglecting. Because as I said earlier at the beginning of this particular edition, the Tower Hamlets Council's website doesn't have any result on safeguarding children duty, number one, or on Shamima Begum, or on Sharmina Begum. They're all zeros. So when the criminals described Lutfur Rahman as Muslim mayor, what the fuck did they do that for? He's not a Muslim mayor at all, nor is he a democratic mayor. So we shall be covering that statement in updated form in later editions whenever we broadcast the later editions. This is 1 hour and 40 minutes, and the time is in London 01:39 hours GMT on Friday, the 10th of March 2023.